think that, yeah, in terms of rhetoric, in terms of voice, in terms of what you can say, yeah, today you can say more. You can talk about women's rights. You can go out there and say, oh, I challenge patriarchy. I think, yeah, that is something that there's been progress, because when we started, society, in short, the word women's rights, we wouldn't use women and rights in the same sentence, you know, in 1980, you know. So that there's been a movement, you know, from there. In terms of the conditions that women live under, yes, if you can say a little more progress in terms of girl-child education, some progress in terms of the professions that women are able to go into, women being able to be in industry and in business and to occupy some leadership position, even though it's only 17%, but yeah, you have more women-led, you know, businesses going on now. You can say that. But whether the change in terms of patriarchy and the woman's place within the family, I don't think that much has changed. In short, we are having a crisis of relationships breaking down and marriages, you know, not working now, because even though women are now going out to work, you know, like their male counterpart, the woman is still expected to come back, no matter how challenging her profession is, whether she's a medical doctor, an engineer, or what, a banker that closes at 9, she's still expected to come, you know, and fetch and carry for the man who closed from work at 4 o'clock and who was watching television until she came. So that much hasn't changed. And I think the population of the country has grown a lot also. So even these things that look on the surface like they are gains, when you look at the rates and the percentages, you will find that not much has changed. Sure, there's a sense in which things have worsened, you know, in terms of women's health generally, you know, maternal and child health, for instance. Nigeria has 2% of the world's population and 10% of the burden of maternal mortality. We are in the same bracket as the Afghanistans and the Somalias and the Pakistans of the world, you know. So there are areas where things have really worsened, you know, from what they used to be in terms of nutrition, quality of life, and all that. Things are worse now than they were in the early 80s because of population, so access to water, access to resources is an issue.
Only because I think in our society, we, especially the younger people, are having such an aggressive rejection of what we need to do, and I think it's also because of what we think we know, because we're learning, but what we end up attacking each other. For example, I'm just going to, like, I come from Lagos Island, and back in the days, it was such a norm for women to just marry, not even marry, just have kids and move on to the next husband and everything. I can't imagine a young person doing that now, like the labeling, the accusation. And back then it was just the norm, like women would just give birth to one person and move on to the next person. And it wasn't a thing. And I'm talking about my grandmothers here, or like my great grandmothers, and nobody ever said, oh wow, that woman. But nowadays it's so aggressively negative, and you're like, well, this used to be our culture, and how is it that the people that are supposed to be more enlightened are so much more critical, so much more judgmental, and how do we balance that really? Because I think that's what we're fighting against right now, and I think it's not even just about being a woman or being a man. I think we, especially younger people, we have such a misunderstanding of what we're supposed to do, and I just think, like, how do you balance that, or how do you teach that nowadays? If that makes sense.
I think that consider that, we are all sinners, we are all struggling. So you tend to be more tolerant of what you think to be people's weaknesses or people's failures. And then suddenly we have this upsurge of people who tell themselves that they are righteous, and even though in reality they are doing the same thing as everybody, but in their consciousness they told themselves that they are, and to live up to that bigotry, people then have to, start shouting down people, and I think also for the young generation, I may be wrong, but I think that we also have to interrogate the role of social media. It's taking over real education, real knowledge. People just think that because I can Google and get awareness of something, I'm an expert. And so I can go on and pontificate and begin to make, say. So I think there's a sense in which the young people are not getting real education anymore. They're really not reading. They're really not educating themselves. So we need to look at the advantages, for me, the limitations of social media. It's added a lot of value to our lives, but we have assumed that social media is it, and then they tend to rubbish everything that's offline, that's, where we are coming from and the culture, because your parents can't do Twitter and Facebook. Therefore, I'm wiser than them. We tended to listen to our parents. We knew that they had experience, even though they didn't go to school. But now it's difficult for our children to listen to us because they can do things on the iPhone that we cannot do. So we are old school. So I think that there are other reasons why I think that, for me, I can think of these two very powerful influences, that's affecting what you said.
Corroborate and push back against what you just said, because one of the things that saddens me about the feminist movement in Nigeria is that there's such a significant disconnect between people in your generation who were pioneers and who have solid grounding in the historicity of what womanhood has been like in our context, and people like me who became feminists on social media, right? Because the social media space is incredibly valuable for young feminists. We can connect with people literally across the continent, across the world, exchange knowledge, and so the frameworks that we have to articulate oppressions are constantly evolving, because these conversations are happening in real time and they're happening in response to actual things in our lives offline. But when we cannot then take that knowledge that we're gaining from one another and translate it into offline engagement, because we don't have the experience that people like you have, then it ends up being like a social justice circle jerk where everybody's like, yes, I know what patriarchy is, and yes, I know what da-da-da-da-da is, but we don't really have frameworks to execute that knowledge in our offline lives, beyond maybe our personal lives. So there are a lot of young radical feminists whose actual lives are vehicles of resistance, but then we cannot, or we haven't been able to coalesce that into a movement in the way that people in your generation did, in powerful ways that actually effected society-wide change. So what I'm hoping for is that we can find ways to have cross-generational dialogue, because people who have done the work like you are so valuable. You have longevity, you have experience, you have insight into offline organizing that we could never dream of, but we don't have access to your knowledge and we don't have access to your networks. And I think that's what we need, both to consolidate our movement and I think also to evolve the original radical feminist movement into something that can have impact on our lives in this generation and in the generations to come.
So don't you think that, because one time I have been writing something about my mother on Facebook, and a lot of people have been talking about it. I received a lot of messages, and I said something about Simone de Beauvoir, and a friend of mine have been answering, we are not feminists, we are humanists. And this thing has been like, since then I have been thinking about it, and I'm happy to be here. And I wanted to ask, like, don't you think that if we were talking about humanists, and presenting ourselves as humanists and not as feminists, more men will be concerned by our actions and about us fighting about human rights, because women's rights is human rights. It's just considering us, as you said, as people, as normal people. So, for example, my husband wouldn't have been coming today to this thing. He would have been thinking, it's just, I'm even surprised to see men here. Maybe because they knew, maybe because they are here for the Institut Français or for the Alliance Française, or some people are really concerned. But my husband wouldn't have been thinking coming here, would have been saying it's a girl thing. So if we were presenting ourselves as humanists and not as feminists, don't you think that they would have been listening to us? Because feminist people think about it as a negative point, like as fighting. So when you want to fight, nobody listens to you. While when you come to have like an interactive thing, which is amazing today, like people can really talk, I think is great. For example, at Madame Ifeoma Fakunwa, that makes her thing, like usually I used to go with my girlfriends. One time my husband came, I don't know why, like he wanted to come, and he has been saying that, like he went out and he said it's amazing, like don't go again without me. So I think that we are not bringing men with us to be understanding us. I think we are pushing them, we are telling them we are feminists, we want our, they are okay with that. I think if we are able to explain to them that we would like our place, like stopping fighting. I think feminism is, sorry for all the feminists, but it's kind of 20th century, and I think 21st we should talk about humanism and bringing more men, taking their hands and telling them, okay, let us try to find a way to be complémentaire, I don't know how we say it, complementary, instead of just talking about, you know, fighting feminism. And yeah, so because you were saying feminism is just letting people, accepting us as people, but for me, in my mind, feminism is fighting, activist fighting, you know. So me as a woman, this is what I think about feminism. So what do you think about men? How would they think about feminism? For them, it's, we are all Simone de Beauvoir and fighting. So yeah, so don't you think that we can talk about humanist instead of feminist, and that it will be an easiest way to start talking about human rights to people that can hear us talking? Because I feel that we are fighting, but they don't hear us.
Okay, brain issues is very important. Like I said, we're talking at the grassroots. When you explain to people what feminism is, so I think it's two ways. One is to, reach out as humanists and put those humanist issues out there instead of using the term feminism per se. But I think it's also important that we let people understand that this humanism and feminism are one and the same thing. I think we need to get them. The thing with feminist fighting, that's why I say it depends on where you are coming from. Here we were told that they want to burn the bra. You know, they say they don't want the men in the West. But you see, if they said you cannot vote, because we are able to engage men a lot in WIN, and even now, if they said I cannot vote because I'm a woman, you don't go there and say, please, I'm not fighting you, and you will never vote. So there are just those issues that you just have to fight, if you are feminist. And they say we can't go out to work. These are things we have taken for granted. You can't go to school because you are a girl. What do? You have to say, no, I have a right to work. You have to assemble, you have to go and, protest, do a march and everything to force society to accept that you have to go to school. So I think it's a balance of both, depending if we are talking with friends and socially and all that. Yes, then we want to persuade them to come and accept that women have these rights they should enjoy. But when you are dealing with the state, or you are dealing with a corporation, for instance, a corporate body, and there are issues that are really, really saying you are not human and you can't enjoy this right, you have no choice but to stand up and confront. So I think what we do is to tell people that the confrontation is not from us. We are the ones who are the victims. I think we need to tell people, if the woman that's the victim is the woman that is being confronted, it is not the woman that is confronted. I want to be a human being, and you are a barrier to me and telling me that no, I can't be a human being. I can't go to school. I can't go to work. You are the aggressor. I am not the one. So I think we just need to do what you said, and talk to people nicely, but at the same time without compromising the principles.